A journalist named Michael is spying on a secret meeting between two high-ranking state officials named Miller and Robin. From their conversation, it is known that Miller, who is a corrupt official, does not accept that his position is taken over by Robin, who is a good official. Miller deliberately asks Robin to meet in this deserted place to kill him. Secretly, Michael records the moment when Miller kills Robin, but unfortunately, Miller notices Michael's presence. Michael manages to escape, but he accidentally drops his wallet and is eventually found by Miller's men. From Michael's ID, they find Michael's address. When he arrives home, Michael immediately wakes up his daughter, Bella. He plans to run away with her. But it seems like it's too late to escape since Miller and his men are already outside his house. Realizing this, Michael immediately tells his daughter to hide, while he tries to negotiate with Miller's men. But they aren't here to negotiate, they are here to kill Michael, who is a key witness to the crimes committed by Miller that night. Seeing her father being executed right in front of her, Bella can only cry without making a sound. Later, Michael's body is buried, and Bella still can't accept the fact that her father has gone forever. The authorities still haven't found the perpetrators of his father's killer. The police conclude that Michael's death is because of a robbery. Bella is soon approached by her best friend named Jake. In front of Bella, Jake promised that one day when he is an adult he will avenge the death of Bella's father. After that, Jake often spends his time with Bella, so Bella could smile again and forget about her sadness even just a little. One day Bella has to say goodbye to Jake with a heavy heart because she has to move to Canada to live with her uncle. Bella says when she grows up she will meet Jake again and collect Jake's promise to avenge his father's death. 22 years later, an adult Jake is in the military. One day Jake and his team are on a mission to raid a terrorist group's hideout. In the end, Jake and his team manage to defeat the group. Thanks to the success of the mission, Jake and his team are awarded medals from the government. It is also known that Jake now has a girlfriend named Liza. When he is about to leave, Jake is approached by his colleague, Brian. Brian says that there is someone who wants to meet Jake. It turns out the person who wants to meet Jake is Miller, the killer of Bella's father. But now, Jake still doesn't know about his crime. Miller offers Jake to work for him as a mercenary. Of course, he will pay Jake a lot of money. Jake refuses Miller's offer and says that he doesn't join the military for money but to serve this country. After that, Jake's girlfriend appears and takes him home. It turns out that Miller is secretly running a drug business with a cartel group led by Omar. That day, Miller's men are conducting drug transactions with Omar's group, who is a cartel boss and also a terrorist leader. But this transaction turns into chaos because Miller betrays Omar. A shootout can't be avoided. Omar's men slaughter all of Miller's men. Omar thinks Miller has betrayed him and orders his men to kidnap Miller's family. A day later, there is news on TV about the Miller family who has been kidnapped by a mafia group. Miller says that 2 of his family members have been killed by this ruthless mafia group. Ronnie, Jake's boss, gives Jake and his team a mission to rescue Miller's family members who are now being kidnapped by a mafia group. Without wasting time, they immediately devised a plan to carry out the mission. After the plan is completed, a reporter meets Ronnie and shows evidence that Miller has been working with Omar's mafia group. Ronnie ignores the evidence because they are currently focused on rescuing the hostages. Outside, Jake and his troops are ready to attack. And this is what happens. Jake and his team easily knock out most of the mafia members, but when they want to rescue a hostage, she tells Jake if his little brother is being taken by Omar, the mafia leader. Jake has to save the child from Omar. Jake returns to face the remaining Omar's group. Jake meets the mafia boss. Omar threatens to kill the child if Jake does not comply with his request. Jake will listen to his orders, as long as the child is not hurt. But in the middle of the negotiation, Brian suddenly appears and shoots the mafia boss, killing the child who is with him in the process. With regret, Jake takes the little body with him. The next day, Jake is summoned by his superiors, informing him that Jake and his team have been dishonorably dismissed because they are deemed to have failed the mission, causing the hostage to die. Ronnie says that this is not his decision, but an order from the commander. Of course, Miller has pressured him into it, but he is still angry because Jake refuses to work with him. Jake, who is still filled with guilt, accepts the decision gracefully. After all, Jake no longer agrees with his superiors' principals, who seem to turn a blind eye to all of Miller's crimes, even though it has been proven that he has worked with Omar's group. In fact, Miller is more concerned with his loss of money than the lives of his 2 children who died at the hands of the mafia group. Jake's misfortune doesn't end there. In the evening, Jake finds his girlfriend is having an affair with another man in the apartment. Jake is trying to be strong and chooses to leave from there. Then he heads to the bar to calm his mind. He hits rock bottom now. He has a new hobby, gambling. He has to lose all his valuable assets after losing at the casinos. When he's exiting the casino, Jake sees a woman being harassed. Jake tries to help the woman, but unfortunately, those people beat him up. Since he is so drunk, Jake can't fight back and can do nothing as he is being beaten. Jake has no place to live. Jake has to sleep on the streets like a homeless person. 6 months later, we see Bella is visiting an office. 22 years later, finally Bella is allowed to leave Canada by her uncle. That day Bella meets her late father's colleague. He wants to give her the recording that Bella's father has entrusted to him. At that time he tells him to give this recording to Bella when she is already an adult. Bella realizes her father doesn't die because of robbery. In fact, a high-ranking state official is involved in his death. One day while she is taking a walk, Bella sees a familiar homeless person. That person turns out to be Jake. Bella finally meets her childhood friend again. Jake feels so ashamed of his current state. He looks so pitiful. Bella invites Jake to his old house. She wants to show him the evidence left by her father. Bella plays the recording in front of Jake. It shows that the perpetrator of her father's murder is Miller, who is a minister. Bella then gives the evidence to Jake to be stored in a safe place. After learning about this fact, Jake now is planning a revenge mission for the death of Bella's father. The next day Jake goes to meet Brian. Jake shows the tape recording to Brian. Jake asks Brian to work with him to capture Miller. However, Brian refuses to work with Jake because he knows that their opponent is not an ordinary person. Miller is a minister who has great influence. In other words, it's dangerous to mess with people like him. It turns out that Brian has been working with Miller and he immediately warns Miller about Jake's plan. He also tells him about the journalist's daughter, Bella, whose father was killed by Miller years ago. Now Bella is residing in her old house. Failing to get support from Brian, Jake then meets his old boss to seek help in revealing Miller's crimes. The boss, who is fed up with Miller, agrees to help Jake, but he doesn't want to be directly involved because it will threaten the safety of his family. Even so, the boss will help Jake in secret and provide him with weapons and his old motorbike. Before starting his plan, Jake wants to meet Bella at her house. But he is very surprised to find the house is very messy and Bella is nowhere to be found. Then Jake hears the sound of a cell phone ringing. When he picks it up, it turns out that the call came from Miller, who has Bella with him. Miller says if Jake wants Bella to survive, Jake has to come to see Miller alone to hand over the recording. Not wanting to waste time, Jake immediately goes to see Miller, but before leaving, Jake contacts his old boss first. Later, Jake's boss is already on the roof of the building next to Miller's headquarters. Then he shoots Miller's men who are guarding outside.
You're on your own.
At the same time, Jake arrives and starts firing as well. Unfortunately, Jake is hit by a bullet, but it does not stop him. Realizing that most of his men are killed, Miller then assigned a mercenary squad led by Brian to kill Jake, who was the best soldier back then in the military. But until now they still can't kill Jake. On the contrary, it is Jake who manages to slaughter them all, leaving only Brian, a former member of his team. Even though Jake's condition is weakened since he's bleeding a lot, it doesn't mean he will give up and let Brian kill him. In the end, it's Brian the traitor who dies in Jake's hands. After slaughtering all of Miller's men, Jake then heads to the minister's private room. As usual, the villain will use a hostage to threaten the protagonist when he is in a desperate situation. Miller asks Jake to hand over the evidence, but even after he has the evidence, Miller still keeps shooting at Jake.
It's okay.
Then Jake starts firing back until Miller is killed. As usual, the police force always arrives late when everything is done. After receiving medical treatment, Jake then gives the evidence to the police. For his services in revealing the crimes of corrupt officials, the government offers Jake to join the military, but Jake refuses the offer because he prefers to live a normal life with Bella, his first love.